A FedEx plane came 100 feet away from landing on top of a Southwest plane in Austin. This would have been a huge disaster and it never should have happened. Let's take a look at what went wrong, and I'm going to show you everything that you need to know whether you fly as a passenger or you're a pilot and you find yourself in a similar situation.
Austin Tower, FedEx 1432 Heavy, passing 5.4 for the Cat 3 ILS, 18 left.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, Austin Tower, 18 left, RVR, touchdown 1,400, midpoint 600, roll out 1,800, 18 left, clear to land.
Clear to land, 18 left, FedEx 1432 Heavy.
All right, there's a few really important clues that we get from this. First of all, FedEx tells the tower that they're passing 5.4. This means they're 5.4 miles from the airport and they are flying the Cat 3 ILS approach. For those of you that have always wondered how a plane can land when they can't even see the runway, this is how they do it. An ILS Cat 3 approach is where the captain is going to turn the autopilot on and the plane is going to do an auto land. Now this is where the plane can essentially land itself, and this is what an auto land in foggy conditions looks like. The weather in Austin at the time of this incident was freezing fog with 200 feet of vertical visibility and about a quarter mile forward visibility. Now the tower controller tells them the RVR. That's the runway visual range. And he's saying that at the point where they land, the RVR is only 1,400 feet. At the midpoint of the runway, it's only 600 feet. And towards the end of the runway, it's only 1,800 feet. All of this means is that FedEx really isn't even going to see the runway until they get below about 200 feet in the air. And that's only about 6 to 7 seconds from landing, so they're going to have almost no time to react. The other really important thing to know is that the Austin Tower controller can't see the planes taking off or landing. Instead, they're relying on the radio calls from the pilots, but they can also use specialized airport surface detection equipment, which is going to provide the tower with a picture of airplanes and vehicles moving around on the ground on the airport, while also showing them aircraft that are flying on final approach to the airport. But we'll talk more about this system later. For now, let's see what happens next.
Tower, Southwest 708, we're short of 18 left, so we're ready. Southwest 708, Austin Tower, runway 18 left, RVR 1,200, midpoint 600, roll out 1,600. Flight heading 170, runway 18 left, clear for takeoff, traffic 3 mile final is a heavy 767. Okay, 170, clear for takeoff, 18 left, copy the traffic, Southwest 708.
All right, so when Southwest Flight 708 says that they're ready for takeoff, at that point it's up to the tower to judge the separation between the aircraft and decide if there's enough time for them to take off. And in this case, the controller cleared them for takeoff and he said that the traffic is on a 3 mile final. However, according to the data, by the time Southwest starts to enter the runway, FedEx is only 2.35 miles away from landing. Now, typically at a busy airport, one or more airplanes might be cleared to land in sequence, or you might be cleared to land while there is still another plane trying to take off from the same runway. So we're going to take a look at what the Air Traffic Control Manual says about this situation. But first of all, remember that the weather is bad enough that FedEx needs to fly a Cat 3 ILS. It's relying on extremely precise signals from ground equipment located near the end of the runway. And the FAA says that aircraft and vehicle access to the ILS critical area must be controlled to ensure the integrity of ILS course signals whenever the official weather observation is a ceiling of less than 800 feet or visibility less than 2 miles. Additionally, the rules go on to specify do not authorize vehicles or aircraft operations in or over the area when an arriving aircraft is inside the ILS outer marker or the fixed used in lieu of the outer marker unless the arriving aircraft has reported the runway in sight. FedEx obviously has not reported the runway in sight, so this is a big deal, and Southwest should have never been cleared to take off. But what makes it even worse is the rules about aircraft separation. If you have one plane landing while another is trying to take off, the controller must ensure the arriving aircraft doesn't cross the landing threshold until the other aircraft has departed and crossed the runway end. But if the controller can use visual landmarks to determine distances, then the plane taking off just needs to be airborne and at least 6,000 feet away from the landing aircraft. So that means Southwest Flight 708 should be airborne and past the end of the runway before FedEx lands. Now obviously in this situation the tower can't see either airplane, and that means the tower has to use that specialized equipment that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But first, let's see how this played out.
Okay, 170, clear for takeoff, 18 left, copy the traffic, Southwest 708.
Tower, confirm FedEx 1432 Heavy clear to land on 18 left.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, that is affirmative, sir. 18 left, you are clear to land. Traffic departing prior to route 737.
Roger.
All right, I'll pause here because according to an NTSB spokesperson, at the point when Southwest starts to roll, FedEx is only 0.45 nautical miles from the runway and going 141 knots or 162 miles per hour. That doesn't leave much time to make a decision, and we're about to see how close these two planes came to a major disaster. Now, I mentioned previously that tower controllers can use a system called Airport Surface Detection Equipment to have awareness of planes on the ground as well as those on final approach about to land. Now, in this situation, the system likely would have detected how close FedEx was, and regardless of the ILS critical area, Tower would have never cleared Southwest to take off, or they would have canceled FedEx's landing clearance, or some combination of the two. This system played a big role in helping prevent two other airliners from colliding during takeoff at JFK Airport, and if you want the full details, you can check out this other video on my channel. However, when it comes to Austin, the only problem is that according to the FAA, Austin does not have this system installed. So let's see how scary the situation got.
Tower, confirm FedEx 1432 Heavy clear to land on 18 left.
FedEx 1432 Heavy, that is affirmative, sir. 18 left, you are clear to land. Traffic departing prior to route 737.
Roger.
Southwest 70, confirm on the road. Rolling now.
Now, you can tell the tower controller's getting nervous.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
Now this is the scary part because the FedEx plane is overtaking the Southwest plane and the two of them are essentially flying down the runway together, one on top of the other.
Southwest 708, roger, you can turn right when able. Negative.
Because the tower controller can't see any of this, he thinks that the abort radio call is actually Southwest saying that they're aborting, which is why he tells them to turn right when able, and that's also why Southwest comes back and says negative. And according to the preliminary NTSB reports, it's likely that the planes came within 100 feet of colliding in the air. In my opinion, based on over 20 years of flying experience in the military and the airlines, the poor weather was a very strong contributing factor to this incident. But the root cause of this is the tower controller clearing Southwest to take off. That never should have happened until after FedEx landed and reported clear of the runway. Now, Austin could benefit from the surface detection equipment system, but we'll wait for the NTSB to release their full findings on this. And if you want to see the details on an incident where that system helped prevent a mishap, check out this other video on the screen here, and I'll see you next time on Pilot Debrief.